The following is a conversation with Candace Taylor. Candace was one of Ed Zimbardi's victims back in 2014 or 2015. She commented on the last video that I posted that was a debate or confrontation of Ed Zimbardi talking about his scam that is the crypto program. And she commented and wanted to share her story. So I reached out to her and set this up. The purpose of this is to put a face to a negative review. So that it's no longer just people writing things on the internet. It's not people making things up. Since posting that video, I've had lots and lots of people message me privately, sharing their stories. And my plan is to help put their stories out as a warning against Ed Zimbardi and the crypto program. So with that said, let's get into the call and hear Candace's story. Hey, Candace, thanks for jumping on. So just a quick introduction. You commented on one of my YouTube videos or the YouTube video about Ed Zimbardi where there was an interview with him. And I was saying that he had scammed people years and years ago, and you commented saying that you were one of those people. So I just wanted to hear your story. Maybe you can introduce yourself really quick.
All right. Yeah, my name is Candace, and I went through a patch of my life. I was involved with a gentleman. I won't get into too many details about him so we can keep it kind of focused on Ed, but this person that I was personally involved with, he and Ed had met each other at some networking meeting, and that's how I got to know Ed. My background was nursing. I worked as a registered nurse. I had my bachelor's in nursing. I did that for 30 years. I kind of retired from that at the urging of the person I was involved with so that I could travel with him and help him out with different business dealings. So I would have more free time. And then I met Ed and his wife in this process. I probably knew them from 2014 to 2016, 17.
Right.
And then a little background on how business got involved was I was, the person that I was involved with was encouraging me to take money and get it, instead of in a 401k, I can make more money in a SEP, and that I could use this money, invest it in these publicly traded stocks through Ed, and it would be financially more stable. I'd have a little bit more control. I actually met with someone from Wells Fargo that encouraged me to do this as well. I was explained to by my boyfriend at the time how it would work. Ed sat down and talked to me about how to set up the SEP. And basically I took all of my money out of my 401k and spent $65,000 on stocks in this publicly traded company.
Right. And that company
wasn't until
Easy.
I'm sorry.
That company was
EasyJR. It was the name of the company at the time.
Ed and Brenda's company together, Ed and his wife.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yes, sir. So that it originally started with EasyJR, and at the time the company was a software company that did help people improve their credit scores.
Right.
To be very basic about it. And my person was from sales was his background. He had done car sales and he'd also done real estate. So he was going to his connections in the real estate world to kind of sell this idea to help them with management, people that are trying to get their credit up so that they could buy a house, to be able to use this and set up contracts so they could use this software to improve credits so that they would be ready when it was time to buy a house. All sounds very legitimate. What we didn't know was in the background that this EasyJR, and this is hindsight, I mean, I'm 9 years out. Looking back, it was kind of a shell company that kept changing names in businesses.
Right.
Ed was taken off of the company as it's set up for the publicly traded company. He had presented himself as the owner of EasyJR and CEO, and that he had all the rights as a board member and CEO and owner to be able to make decisions about the business and to contract with us to be able to go out and sell his product with the idea that we would be paid. That never happened. And in the background, I found out that they were taking him off the board. They had gotten his name off as owner. They had then began to change the name of the company. It went from EasyJR to Her Imports. And that was a hair extension company.
Right.
So we then had to backpedal. Now I've got all of my savings has been put up in this company. So we backpedaled and started looking for a way to do software for a delivery system for this company, Her Imports. It began trading from EasyJR. It switched over to HHER. And then I can look back when I got the stocks, I was explained that it was going to be, I'm trying to think of the term. Is limited the right term? Restricted. That was the term I understood. And that it would be restricted for a year, that as an owner that I wouldn't be able to sell it or trade it for at least 1 year.
Right.
Well, when I went to try to sell it, it's actually locked as an owner stock. I can't do anything. It's not registered.
Right.
So then when the company started changing names, they did a reverse split. So my 216 shares went to about 80,000 shares. It became less and less worth any money. And still, because it's locked, it's basically not worth anything anyway.
Right.
It
So
led
to jump in really fast, it seems
Yes,
so.
sir.
So Ed is the one that was kind of pitching you on this.
Correct.
He was selling you
Yes.
into it, and he didn't tell you that the stock was going to be locked basically indefinitely. He said 1 year,
Correct.
and then
1
you'll
year.
have access to it. You'll be able to pull out your money if you want to. But during that time, it seems like the company was folding anyways and got sold and turned into something else completely.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. That's what I was understanding.
And that's where I came up with a term like a shell company, because it's like they use this company and then it changes names. It's kind of, when I talked to somebody who works, a lawyer that works in stocks, he said it's kind of one of those things, it's a gray area. It's not necessarily illegal, but it is very gray and not necessarily moral. People will sell you as an investor on a small penny stock and then change everything. So then it's just, they're just getting money for investors.
Right. And they're not actually using that
around
to grow the company and do what they're supposed to be doing with the money. Got it.
Correct.
So I've talked to someone else, currently anonymous, that I can't mention, and they said the same thing. I think they invested $290,000 into the same company and had that changed, the same that you're saying.
Okay. And I might even know who that is.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was a pretty small group there in Georgia that
Right.
I feel like, and you can see, because he was sending me to people like Wells Fargo to talk to an accounting VP person. I was working with people at Keller Williams. We were working with all sorts of people that were legitimate. For me, as someone who's not worked with it, the red flags didn't go up until all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm done. I need to get out of this. And then, well, actually it was when I went to file my taxes.
Right.
And the tax lawyer who I was referred to by Ed said, hey, they didn't have you set up, I think it's got a number 58 something, to actually set up the set. Like, no, I was never told to do that. And at this point, I'd probably talked to 5 or 6 people before I did it.
Right. So no one even told you what you were supposed to actually do after you
No.
gave them the money. It was kind of like, oh, okay, we're just going to do whatever we want to do.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Got it. So, and I think, did you say that you had lived with them at some point, or that you had visited them for something along those lines?
Yes, we because we were working out of Atlanta, we were trying to find an apartment, and Ed and Brenda offered to let us rent a room in the basement of their home. They lived in the Chateau Alana neighborhood in Brazelton, Georgia at the time.
Right.
And we rented a room down in their basement. And so Brenda and I became very close friends.
Right. So do you think Brenda is involved in these scams and scamming people, or do you think that she's kind of just was kind of just following along with Ed?
I think that as a wife, she saw the red flags and couldn't figure out how to get out.
Okay.
And then because I was the girlfriend to the other person, I've got two con artists scamming each other. The emotional, it's hard to disconnect. It's like you get the feeling things are wrong, but you really can't put your finger on it until, hindsight. It's this whole psychological control.
Right.
So she was very involved in the business workings. Do I think she was part of the con? I think he used her for that.
Right. But yeah, got it. So from the outside looking in, I wasn't able to tell if she was actually involved, and it seemed like it was mainly just Ed, and that she was probably just kind of going along with what Ed was doing, but maybe not knowing, given that it seems that they're divorced now. So it was kind of like maybe she figured it out. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yes, that's that. I would say that.
Got it. So you didn't really see many red flags. It sounds like you weren't really like an expert investor, but that you maybe had done a little investing or looked into it a little bit, but that your boyfriend was kind of leading you along with Ed.
Absolutely.
And that Ed sold you into this, and then it kind of changed from there. Afterwards, after you're trying to get your money, after you're saying, hey, I want out of this, have you talked to Ed about this at any point? Have you reached out to Ed and said, hey, what is this about?
At some point, he blocked me, doesn't answer emails. And the ex-boyfriend attempted numerous times to get money back. And
Right.
he even went over his head and went to the now, well, at the time, current CEO. And we were unable to get any money out of it.
Right.
And basically, they wanted to give me like half a penny on the dollar share to buy me out.
Right. So it would have been like not much money at all, it sounds like.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
So nowhere near what you put in.
Absolutely not. Wasn't anywhere near what I invested, not even half.
So I think some people watching this might think, oh, well, Candace just made a bad investment. But what I'm hearing you say, and what I've heard other people say to me, is basically that Ed sold you into something that basically didn't even exist. It was just kind of it was a shell company that he sold you into to buy shares at a price that he kind of made up. And then it just started changing the company's name. So it's not necessarily even a bad investment. It's just you trusted Ed, given that you were around him. That's what I'm gathering.
Correct. And, being in the house, I kind of could overhear some of the things. And like, if you looked on the stock exchange, you could see where it was trading at like $1, $1.20, $5 a share at one time.
Right.
And we were able to buy the shares at like 60 cents on the dollar. So we were under the impression it was a good investment. He was selling part of his stocks. As an investor, it was a good opportunity. The same thing when I listened to your video the other day, it was like hearing the same spiel over again. His sales pitch. And he has said this before. I can sell anything. It doesn't matter what the gadget is.
Right.
The gadget is just a thing.
Yeah, I believe it. And he puts his own spin on it and changes meanings of words and things. And it shocks me how he could sleep at night, but I don't know. You mentioned to me something about victim shaming, where you said that that you picked up on that in the video, where he was blaming the people that had invested money by trusting him, and then he went on to steal the money from them. You were saying that you had maybe experienced something along those lines?
Yeah. Like you said, well, you shouldn't have spent any money that you couldn't afford to lose.
Right.
That's you're gambling when you buy stock. That's, it's an investment. And it felt it brought up some really old feelings of, I had done the wrong thing. I shouldn't have listened to you. It was my fault.
Right. That makes sense. It's very important I think, to distinguish between an investment that's risky and a scam. So in your situation, it sounds like a gray area scam. Other people are telling you it's an immoral thing that he's doing. It's not the right thing to do. And
Yes.
Other people are saying very similar things, that it was a gray area. They can prove that they bought it and that it was with Ed and everything Ed told him, but that it was a gray area. It was legal, but it was definitely not moral. And it was basically like a legal version of a rug pull. You put your money in and then they just switch, and now it's basically worthless because you can't take it out.
Right. Well, and the thing about whether or not it was legal, I never spoke with the actual brokers. I spoke directly to Ed. I handed Ed the check for $65,000. The brokerage company mailed me the stock certificate, but Ed is not a broker. And one of the things they said that was really not legal, that really teetered on not legal, was that I didn't actually hand the check to a broker. That no one actually brokered the business, and he's not legal to be able to sell those stocks without a broker involved.
Right. So what happened after all this? You attempting to get your money back? Did you have to go back to work? Did you have to file bankruptcy? Was there anything along those lines?
Yeah, I did have to go back to work, and I did file bankruptcy, because with investing all of that, thinking that I had shelled it in a SEP, I didn't think I would have tax consequences. So pulling out my $65,000 out of the 401k, I then had a $35,000 tax that I then had to pay. Plus, I found out at that point I was seeing the con artist in my boyfriend, and had found out he had opened businesses and credit cards in my name that weren't getting paid.
Oh, wow.
And a car that he bought me for my birthday also wasn't getting paid. So like I said, it was this con artist trying to con a con artist, and I got caught in the crossfire.
Right.
And I have never been able to decide if they were actually working together.
Right.
Or not.
Yeah, that's confusing, because if they're both con artists, like Ed is very good at spinning stories, and you would never know. It's really hard to know the truth. Yeah. So I asked Ed a question at the end of the call, where he has some health problems. So I was asking him, what does he think about, his mortality? How does he think he'll be viewed after he's long gone from this world? His answer was along the lines of, first, he started with, who cares? I'm gone. And then he said that he thinks that, or he wants people to remember him for doing good in the world, something along those lines. What do you have to say about that? How do you think Ed would actually be remembered?
I'm not sure what good he's done. I think even the people there are going to be a few people that actually made money on these businesses. Because like I said, there's a few of them that are gray areas, and they got in it, made a little bit of money, and then got out. and weren't there long enough to see the con, if
Right.
that makes sense. They didn't invest enough money to where they lost very much. And I don't know what he's done that's good in the world. I mean, you should ask him
Yeah.
about his children.
Right. Well, I don't want
And
to
his
currently get into,
relationship with them.
yeah, maybe you know more about that than I do. I don't, yeah, but, okay. So what would you tell anybody that's dealing with Ed or going to invest in anything that he's selling?
I would say don't, absolutely don't. I would scream don't at the highest, on the highest mountaintop. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. If it feels like it's too good to be true, it is.
Yeah.
There is a catch along the way. There are some things that he's done that have been somewhat legitimate. Then he ropes you into something that is not. He
Right.
puts you in something that's legitimate, you trust him, and then he drags you into something else.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, he ties in two things together to make it seem believable.
Yes.
That makes sense. Do you have anything else that you would want to share or want anyone to know? Is there anything that we're missing here?
Or having to remember back in my,
Yeah.
from several years ago.
It was in 2014,
really,
right? 2014
yeah,
when it started. Yeah.
yeah, and that was, I mean, it was kind of a really hard time for me, and I've had to do a lot of psychological healing since then. So, man, if you don't want to be conned, because even if he gets you into something legitimate, there's going to be something else. He's going to earn your trust, and he will put you in something else that's not legitimate. And that's what happens. It starts very legitimate, and then it turns. And he talks about being a Christian, and he talks about being a believer, and then he turns around and does stuff like listening to him at an MLM meeting, trying to get people to join, skirting the truth about the benefits of that particular gadget. I was very uncomfortable with. I'm like, just tell them the truth. If they want it, they want it. If they don't, they don't. You don't have to lie about it. If it's a good product, you don't have to lie. You don't have to make it better than what it is.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let's wrap this up. I mean, I really appreciate you sharing your story, because it's got to be hard to put this out. I mean, it feels bad to be scammed, to lose your money, and like you said, it's painful. And then also sharing your story. And I can tell that you're a good person. You wanted to come on here mainly just to warn people about Ed and not to invest in his programs. So I really do appreciate you jumping on here to do that, because I know it's hard to do and painful.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of brought up some really has opened some old wounds.
Right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. And again,
Mhm.
I appreciate you jumping on here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for letting me have a voice, in hopes that maybe at least one person will tell him no.
Right. That's what this is about. Getting people to see what's really happening and not lose their money. So thanks again, Candace.
You're very welcome. Thank you.